Well, I came from a little younger generation in the mix. In the early 60s, probably about 1961 or 1962, I went to my cousin's house, a guy named Dave Poli, and he played me records of Jesse Fuller and a record on Folkways called Mountain Music Bluegrass Style. And it was like a conversion experience for me. I was just, from then on, all I could think about was playing music, and I didn't know who to. I found one kid at junior high named Brent Bradford, and we started a little group and sang Blue Sky Boy covers, and then we found the Intermountain Folk Music Society. I started taking guitar lessons on Saturday mornings from Jim Sorrell's at their home upstairs, and I got very involved in the Folk Music Society. But I came from a really pretty devout Mormon family, and so it was interesting. You know, by 1964, I was supporting Barry Goldwater in the election, and everyone I was hanging out with hated Barry Goldwater, and so there was this. It was an odd thing. I mean, I remember my friend Brent Bradford and I trying to find an empty bottle that sort of looked like a wine bottle, so we could drip candles, and put it in the room and listen to folk music records with the lights turned low. And so that's, you know, we had this very romantic vision when we were just teenagers about, you know, what we could be part of. And I have to say that even as 13, 14-year-olds, we were really allowed into this group in a very whole way, and it was amazing. I remember Brent Bradford was elected to the board of the Intermountain Folk Music Society. He was 14 years old, and you know, for us that was just incredible empowerment to be part of this group of people. And Rosalie always invited me to her parties. When the Georgia Sea Island Singers came, or when Guy Carawan came, or when the New Lost City Ramblers came, I got to hang out with these people. And on the side, I got to babysit Rosalie's children, which was a handful, I have to say.
There were 5 of them.
There were 5 of them. But it was an extraordinary experience for a young person who was sort of struggling with my religion and my faith, and at the same time just being totally compelled by this beautiful music and by a scene that I was just captivated by. I remember we'd sit, there was a coffee house that opened in town, and we didn't think we could go in, but we'd sit outside and sort of watch and wonder what was going on inside. And it was all very sort of, we were in but sort of outside of it all. When I became a sophomore in high school at East High School, oh, by the way, Dave Poli was your classmate,
Yes,
and you had both of you had brought Jesse Fuller to high school, right?
Well, Dave brought Jesse Fuller to the campus, but he was a pal of mine. I really liked him a lot.
So that's, I mean, there was all these ties. We were all pretty close.
Yeah.
But when I was a sophomore in high school, we started the East High Folk Music Club, and Polly's younger sister Heather and a friend of mine named Ralph Dusnick and I started the club. And as sophomores, it was the largest club at East High School. It was just a gigantic club, and this was in 1964. And we put on I found this morning, a big concert.
Oh, wow.
And it included the Utah Valley Boys with Bruce Phillips and Bruce Cummings, Rosalie Sorrells, and then us kids. And I'm not sure if you sang on this concert or not. But
and many others. No,
yeah,
I wasn't among the
many others. And here's an article with us sitting around Rosalie Sorrells, and I'll pass these around if you want to take a look at them. But we were very active in promoting folk music when we were just in high school, all sorts of different folk music. And it was a pretty exciting time for us because we really got to be involved in promoting concerts. I mean, in my later folklore work, I already knew how to put on a concert. I knew all about sound systems, and it all came from this early experience being involved as a teenager in folk music. I mean, getting Sing Out magazine and reading the latest on Pete Seeger being banned from the Hootenanny show, and there were really for me there were two centers of this. There was the folk music center of it, which was Rosalie's house, and then there was the bluegrass center, which was at Bruce Cummings' men's clothing store. It's in a beautiful brownstone downtown. It was called Cummings Men's Store. Beautiful clothing, and he was a little older. He was maybe older than you.
He's a little about 5 years older.
And he was a very fine mandolin player, and he loved bluegrass so much that we'd go down the summer of 9th grade and just play music all day. Customers would come in and want to be waited, and he'd say, wait, I just have to do this break on Rawhide. So we played music all summer at Bruce Cummings' store. And then he went off and became a vice president of Tiffany's or something, in New York. Yeah. So that's sort of my story in it, a latecomer.
Well, you developed into the Deseret String Band later on.
Later on, we had the Stormy Mountain Boys in this concert. We had a group that's still going called the Stormy Mountain Boys with Brent Bradford. It's almost 40 or 50 years old. I'm not in it anymore. But we started the Deseret String Band and started doing Utah folk music. And some of our inspiration were Rosalie's early recordings of Utah folk music and collections, and also the Hubbard and Fife collections and Cheney collections. And we started doing old time music, but that was in the 70s, 1972 when we started. We went for about 30 years. So I'm still at it, still playing music, and I haven't changed that much.
Thanks, Hal. So, Rosalie.